I'm going to make the assumption that one day you want to retire, and during that retirement you want to live comfortably to a standard of living you've become accustomed to. Maybe you don't want to wait until the government state pension age of 65, or is it 68 now? The goalposts seem to keep moving. But how much money do you need to have to be able to retire on? Well, in this video, I'm going to discuss one of the most famous rules in retirement planning, the 4% rule, and why you need to be extra careful when using it, especially if you want to retire early like I do. So let's get into it. Hi guys, my name is Liam Trump, and if this is your first time here and you want to learn more about how to save and invest, optimize your personal finances and retire early, then hit that like and subscribe button to promote this video and so you don't miss out on future videos. If you've had a bad day at work or start crying when the early morning alarm goes off, then you've probably spent some time researching how much money you need in order to retire. And you've probably come across the 4% rule. The 4% rule originated from a study by a financial planner called William Bengen in 1994. In a fictional portfolio of 50% stocks and 50% bonds, he showed that over a 30-year period, the maximum safe withdrawal rate was 4%. So, what does that mean? He showed that in retirement, you can withdraw 4% of your total portfolio of investments each year and never run out of money. Using this rule of thumb, we can then reverse engineer how much money we need to have saved and invested in our retirement pot in order to be able to effectively retire. First, calculate how much do you believe you'll need to live off to live the retirement life that you dream of. Now, take the time to really think about what your retirement will look like. Do you want to travel? Do you want to start a new hobby? Do you want to buy that retirement home in Spain? Really take the time to think about it. For those of you that follow the FIRE movement, which is financially independent, retire early, and want to retire extremely early by conventional standards, then also take into consideration other lifestyle changes, such as having kids or getting married, and the costs associated with that. So let's take a simple example. Say you want to retire very comfortably off £40,000 a year. In order to work out how much money you need in your investment retirement pot, you need to take £40,000 and multiply it by 25, as 4% goes into 125 times. Taking this example, if you wanted an income of £40,000 a year, you would need £40,000 times 25, which is £1 million in your retirement pot. Now, this may seem like a lot, but getting to £1 million in your investment portfolio is probably easier than you think. If you haven't watched it already, check out the video I've done on becoming an ISA millionaire, which should pop up above my head just here. And in this example, I've assumed that you want to live off £40,000 a year, which during retirement is actually quite a lot. If you wanted to move overseas where the standard of living is cheaper, if you don't have kids or they've already grown up and flown the nest, and you already own your own home, then £40,000 is probably more than enough to live comfortably on during retirement. Let's take an example that you wanted to live off £10,000 instead per year. Then, in that case, you only need an investment portfolio of £250,000. Now, with any piece of advice, especially if you hear it on YouTube, you need to take into consideration both sides of the story. And over time, there has been a lot of criticism about the 4% rule. The first being that this study and subsequent studies that supported it, such as the Trinity study, were based on US historical data during a time period of extreme success, aka the US boom years. This has two main issues. Firstly, what's happened in the past doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen again in the future. And right now, stocks are relatively highly priced compared to the past. And when we pay higher prices, we expect lower future expected returns. Not only that, but take into consideration that in William Bengen's portfolio, he had 50% in bonds. And right now, it's nigh impossible to get a 4% return on bonds in any safe way. Therefore, your stocks would have to make up the difference. Whilst no one can predict the future, we should take into consideration that expected returns based on today's current prices may not support a return on investment of 4% after inflation year on year in the short to mid-term. Secondly, if we take into consideration other countries outside of the US and conduct the same study, then the results aren't as pretty, with only one other country, which was Canada, getting over the 4% bar that was set. Wade Pfau, who has written a number of books on retirement planning, conducted the same William Bengen study in 2010, but for 17 developed countries outside of the US. He found, for example, that in the UK, to have a completely safe withdrawal rate over that time period, the maximum that you'd be able to withdraw was only 3.43%. On top of this, you also have to take into consideration sequencing risk, which, when very much simplified, means if there's a stock market crash when you first retire and you continue to withdraw money, has a long-lasting negative impact on the amount of money and the returns that you'll have on your portfolio. Lastly, and what I consider to be a big problem in using this rule of thumb for retirement planning, especially for those of us that want to retire early, is that the study was based on a retirement period of 30 years. See, William Bengen created this study to help with his typical client, who were expecting to retire around about the age of 65 and on average live until they were 85. He then added an extra 10 years, up to 95, to take into consideration longevity risk and just to be safe. But for those of us that are looking to retire early, hopefully our retirement period will be over 30 years. And for those of you that are following the extreme FIRE movement and want to retire extremely early, then your retirement period may be up to 50 years or more. And this is a problem, because if we take William Bengen's original study and we extend it past the 30-year time period, then the 4% success rate has been shown to reduce year on year as retirement periods get longer. So, taking into consideration all of that, some financial planners are now saying that if you want to retire at around the age of 65, a safe withdrawal rate is more likely to be around about 3 to 3.5%. And for those of us that are looking to retire early, the safe withdrawal rate may be as low as 2 to 2.5%. Pretty depressing so far, right? If you're going to be living off just 2.5% of your investment returns, it means you need to have 40 times the amount of money that you want to live off each year in your investment portfolio before you can retire. But don't stop watching just yet. See, all is not lost. There are some flaws to the 4% rule which can benefit us. The study makes some assumptions that probably won't be true. Firstly, the study assumes that you won't adjust your spending during your retirement. But in reality, you probably will, and the amount you'll spend each year will be variable. Some years you'll spend more than others. During a time of low or negative returns in your portfolio, you'll reduce your spending to adjust. And on the flip side, if you choose to do so, you can spend more when the returns on your investments in that given year are higher than the 4% return in real terms. Secondly, and what I consider to be the most important rule in all of this analysis, is that the 4% rule doesn't take into consideration that you receive any income from the day that you retire. That means that it doesn't take into consideration any money that you may receive from state benefits, such as a pension, or it doesn't take into consideration any money that you unfortunately may receive from inheritance, and it doesn't take into consideration any income that you may receive from working. Now, I know what you're thinking, but you said retired. How can I be working if I'm retired? Well, being financially independent and retiring early for me doesn't mean stopping work completely. Instead, retiring early is having the financial security to have options, or as I like to call it, FU money. It's about having the option to work full time if you choose to do so, or not. Instead, you'll have the time to follow other passions in life, which in the short run may only bring in a little bit of income, but can help support the overall income that you have during retirement and supplement for times and years when you have lower returns of investment. In fact, many early retirees, after spending some time focusing on their initial goals of travelling or getting fit, end up earning more or equal to the amount of money they were earning when they were fully employed. That's because they have the time to be able to really think and solve problems and start businesses, adding to their overall income, allowing them to live a very comfortable retirement life. In summary, hopefully I've shown that the 4% rule, which has been the foundation for a lot of financial retirement planning in the past, is flawed. And actually, it shouldn't be relied on solely when considering your retirement, especially if, like me, you want to retire early. Retirement planning is complex, and you need to work with a professional to understand and take into consideration all the individual circumstances which are relevant to your situation. But the 4% rule is easy. It's a rule of thumb for a reason. It boils down all that complexity into a single reference point, which you can use to understand where you're at on your journey, and then make adjustments from there. As you become more experienced about personal finance and investing, you'll be able to be more specific and detailed about what your actual retirement requirements will be. And like many, when you have a target to work towards, over time, you'll learn to reduce your expenses and probably realise that you don't need as much money as you first thought to retire. So with that being said, thank you so much for watching. And if you haven't done so already, please hit that like and subscribe button for more weekly content on personal finance and investing. And if you know someone that would enjoy this video, please share it with them. And as always, let me leave you with a quote. The question isn't at what age do I want to retire, it's at what income. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time.